So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce, with great pleasure,
Thank you, Joan. Good evening, everybody. It's an amazing turnout, and I told a few friends where I was going today, and they said, "Oh yeah, there's going to be like 3 Democrats." And I told them, I said, "I've been with Democrats on the Northshore before. There's a lot more people than you might imagine, and there's more people here than I imagine. So this really." Are there any Methodists in here? So my heart is strangely warm. People know what that means, but it just really warms my heart to see so many people come out on a Monday night, and you got other things to do, to try to talk about taking your state back, to save your state from what's our state, what I think is about to happen. I think it's a really hopeful sign to see so many people out on a night like this, so many people running for the Parish Executive Committee and the DSCC's around seats around the state. We cannot. This is my. After the election, I was in a bit of a funk. The first thing I did on election, the morning after the election, was tell my dean I was retired. I decided to leave my job. And my wife and I spent a good part of last year driving around North Carolina looking for places maybe to move to if Jeff Landry got elected governor and leave the state. And there was a point somewhere in the last 3 or 4 months where I said, no, this state is worth saving. I'm not gonna leave it. It's worth fighting for. And we didn't have a party that was willing to fight for us. So let's take that party back. Let's take it over. Let's get the party into the fight. It's never too late. And so I'm committed, and I know all of you are committed to doing something about this and being the resistance in this state and trying to stop what I think is going to be some really bad stuff. I just in the last few days, it gets more and more depressing. I don't have to tell you, and I'm not here to depress you and tell you why you should be depressed. I hope I'm here to help give you some reason for hope, to give you some reason to want to fight, and maybe talk a little bit tonight about some ways that I think we can fight. And I do think that and I'm glad that the candidates for the Parish Executive Committee and the DSCC were here to speak, because I think it's grounded in taking the party back and making it an effective force in Louisiana politics. Again, it's not the only thing, and we can't put too much responsibility on the party. I think a lot of people expect the party to do more than it can do, more than it is supposed to do. But the party should do what it is supposed to do. It should fulfill its function. I didn't put this in my bio, and I don't really talk about this because it's not the most important thing I did, but maybe for tonight it is. I spent two 6-month terms in my time when I was working for John Breaux as the communications director for the party during the 1995 governor's race, and then in 1992. And so I've spent a lot, and from my first day that I was involved in Louisiana politics working for Russell Long, we were intimately involved with the party. John Breaux, Russell Long, Bennett Johnston, Mary Landry, Kathleen Blanco. They were all intimately involved in building the party, raising money for the party, giving it the resource, helping raise the resources, lifting the party up, being on very intimate terms with whoever the chair of the party was, the national committee man and committee woman. All those people were integral parts of our political operation. When I worked for John Breaux, I worked for Breaux for 17 years. We spent as much time with Jim Brady and Tucker Melanson and others, leaders of the party, as we did with anybody in the state. They were just an integral part of our operation. And I'm not here to criticize John Bell Edwards, but he got off to a really bad start with the party. And he never really invested in the party. He never really made that. He was estranged from the chair for the whole time. And we had 8 years where we could have built that party, and for whatever reason, the dysfunction between the governor and the party, it really set us back. So one of the reasons why the party was so ineffective, I believe, in this last race is because all that building that needed to be done over 8 years was just never done. You just don't stand up a party operation. You just don't stand up a movement overnight. And the opportunity we have is that all of you are in the room tonight for roughly 4 years from the next statewide election, the next election for governor, the next election for legislative races. That's 4 years away. That's enough time to build a party. That's enough time to build a bench. That's enough time to identify candidates. That's enough time to identify people in your midst, in this room, or in your communities, to run for local offices, to run for legislature. It's enough time to start building the party back so that when the next election comes, it's able to do its job. It's able to not fight for us, but to be the vehicle that we all join together to do the fight. But it's got to start now. We can't wait until the winter before, the year before the next governor's election. We got to do it now. And so that's why I'm so encouraged to see so many people here tonight. And I suspect that there are other gatherings like this around the state, I hope so, that are talking about the same issues and trying to figure out what do we do to rebuild the party. So I wish all the candidates Godspeed, because I think that the chair of the party is an important position. I mean, it's especially when we don't have a Democratic governor, when we don't have a Democratic U.S. senator. When we have Democratic U.S. senators, when we had John Breaux or Mary Landry, when we had John Bell Edwards, we had Kathleen Blanco, those people were in many ways the spokespeople, the head of the party in a sense. But we don't have that anymore. Whoever is the head of the Democratic Party is really is going to be the most prominent, can be the most prominent Democrat in the state. And that person needs to be really on his or her game. That person needs to be laser focused on delivering the message, laser focused on building the bench around the state, laser focused on the party building that needs to be done, but also really, really effective with the public game, because there's no John Breaux to do that for us now. There's no person who's known across, there's no universally known public figure in the state as a Democrat who can do that. It's got to be the chair of the party to some extent that's going to do that. So this election, after the DSCC races are settled and the next party chair is selected or re-elected, God forbid. I'm going to lay it on the line. There may be people here who think that
Thank you.
There may be people here who like Katie. That's fine. I'm not. But I think that from my perspective, it was a total abdication of responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
A total abdication of responsibility. I don't know we all know what I don't need to review the past, but that job is really important. And so, to me, job number one is electing the right people to the DSCC, and job number two is those people electing the right person to be chair of the party. And that's that's not something that we collectively can do in this room tonight. We can play. You can play your part. I can play my part in Baton Rouge, and who I vote for. But I want to talk just a little bit about what I think that we individually can do. After assuming the party situation gets sorted out, that there is an effective leader elected to chair the party. What are we going to do? And one of the first things I think we have to do the party has to do it, but we can do this ourselves too, and that is start identifying people, start building the bench. Start building the bench. There are people potentially in this room. There are people serving on city councils right now, town council, school boards, who are really dynamic people. There are people who need to run for a school board seat or need to run for a city council seat who are potentially really effective state senate or state house candidates in 4 years. That work has to start now. That work really needed to start 4 years ago, but that work has to start now. And so, as you're thinking about what you're going to do, as you're thinking about how you want the party to operate, that needs to be job number one: is building the bench and identifying people, not just thinking who's going to be the next, who's going to run for governor in 4 years, but who's going to run for these legislative seats. What was the number? How many legislative seats were in?
17 seats had opposition.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, that is a colossal failure on the part of the party right there to just, and it's not all the party's responsibility, but that bench building is really, really important. So as you, and for those of you who are candidates for these positions, please think about that. I hope you'll message that we want this party to, we got to raise money. We got to, I think billboard is great and all that, but the real down to the precinct level work is really, really important, and the party can lead that because there are there are parish executive committees. There are 110 Democratic State Central Committee members. There's a lot of, when the party's when all these people are fully elected, there's a lot of people out there that can do this work if they are led well. If what's going on in Baton Rouge from the executive committee and the chair is doing their jobs and staying in touch with those people and working with them, giving them the resources they need, this party can be a really effective operation. This party can be a really effective force in the state, but it's got to be led well. It's got to have the right priorities. What can we do? And so, one of the things when I started my blog back, one of the reasons I did it is because I'm retiring, and I thought, I'm too old to run for anything. I never really wanted to run for office. I felt like what is my best contribution? And my best contribution was I think I can write. I missed my column. I thought my column had a little bit of an impact. Not that I persuaded a lot of people, but I always saw my column as talking to people who were isolated and didn't think that anyone around them agreed with them. I was telling I had a neighbor fussing at me today. How come you never criticize the Democrats? And I said, there's one thing I know. There's one thing I can do. I know my assignment, and I keep to my assignment. My assignment is not to criticize Democrats. My assignment is to criticize the people who are totally in charge of the state now. That's my assignment. But I told him, from the very first day that I started writing, I had in mind a 50-ish-year-old woman in Golden Meadow who's married to a truck driver who's a rabid Trump supporter. She's Catholic, and everybody around her is so-called pro-life. They've all got those signs in the front yard saying, I'm pro-life, and she's not. And she thinks she's all alone, and she can't even say who she is. She can't out herself as a Democrat, as a liberal in her community, in her circle of friends, because she's afraid they'll ostracize her, they'll cast her out. And so I wrote to her. I talked to her to give her comfort. You're not alone. And that's what I can do. That's my contribution. And I started the blog back because I thought, what can I do? I got to do something. What can I do? So I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my contribution. And I say that not to brag on myself, because it's my contribution. And I've got 500 people. I'm not reaching a lot of people, right? Okay, so it's not like I'm speaking to thousands, but it's what I can do. What can you do? That's the question I think we all have to ask ourselves, is what is my talent? What can I do? Can you spend all day on the phone just being an annoyance to your legislators? You know, can you just be that person who calls every day, you know, or every week? As someone who's spent a lot of time working in the legislative office, I can tell you that when I was John Road State Director, and so at the end of the day, or during the day, I would get calls from all our offices around the state telling me what people were calling in to talk about. And if we got 100 phone calls in a day on an issue, we started running around like our hair was on fire. You know, everybody is calling about this thing. Well, it was 100 people out of 4 million. It was, you know, not really a representative sample. But we would take, but if 100 people called, you know, if 25 people called every one of our offices around the state, we called Washington and said, look, tell Bro, there are a lot of people. Everybody's calling about this thing, you know? It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot of phone calls, a lot of letters, a lot of contacts to persuade a legislator that you're watching, that you're not happy, and that you want him or her to do this thing, and for them to pay attention. We think that our collective voices don't really have a lot of impact or don't matter. It really does. I think you'd be surprised how little you have to bug a elected official to get their attention. Now, I'm not saying that 100 phone calls to some Republican legislator tomorrow is going to persuade them to change their position on gun control. That's not going to happen. But that's not the game. The game is incremental change. The game is making them a little scared of you. Just progressively a little scared. That's the game. And sometimes it may be, changing a vote or two. But if you're that person, if that's what you can do, if that's what you have time to do, to call people, to write people, then do that. If you can write, then write a letter to the editor. I mean, that's what you can do. You can write a letter to the editor. You can write a column, and you can write an op-ed to your local paper. You'd be surprised how many people read that stuff, and how many people, the kind of impact that it can have. If that's what you can do, do that. If what you can do is raise money or organize meetings, then do that. I mean, I'm not here to tell you what you can do. I think you've got to figure that out for yourself. But I think Jeremy was the one who said it. It's not a lot. No one's asking you to save the world. No one's asking you to save collectively we'll save the world. It's like that saying, everybody wants to save the world, no one wants to help mom with the dishes, It's what are the dishes that you can do? What are the washing the dishes? What are the small things that you can do that collectively make a big deal? So I encourage you to spend some time thinking about that, and don't discount whatever it is that you think that you're talented at, that you've got a gift that you could do. Do that thing. Do that thing. Don't guilt yourself. Don't let anybody guilt you because you're not doing the other thing. Don't let anybody guilt you because you're not running for office. If that's not your thing, don't run for office. If your thing is doing this other thing, writing a letter, making phone calls, showing up at meetings, whatever that is, do that. And don't apologize that you're not doing the other thing. It's real easy for me. I wrote this piece a few weeks ago in the blog about what I listed about 8 or 9 things that I thought people could do, and I would encourage you to read that. I'm not going to go over it. But one thing that I would encourage you to do is to think in terms. Everything that I had in that column and that post was really about mobilization. I'm giving you, here's what you should do. Here's some ideas of things you should do. And so you could do number 3, you could do number 4, you could do 5 and 6, whatever. And that's all good. I mean, if you're looking for things to do, then I would say, go read my piece or go read, anybody who's writing about what are some grassroots activism that you can engage in. Do that. But I think when we do that, we sometimes leave out the really important stuff, which is the organize. Mobilization is really important, but organizing is really important too. And so this room has a lot of people in it who should be getting together later this week or next week in groups of 3 or 4 or 5 and saying, creatively, what can we do? I mean, what is our thing? What kind of thing can we do? What kind of, to borrow the phrase from John Lewis, what kind of good trouble can we start in St. Tammany Parish next week? That kind of thing. So, don't let people just like me, don't listen to just people like me who are up here telling you, here's what you should do. You should write letters together, you should make phone calls, you should give money, you should vote for new leadership of the party, you should give money to, I had a whole list of organizations that you should support, and I think you should. You should find organizations that you care about that are leading on issues that are important to you and support those organizations. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. But that's all mobilization kind of stuff. What can you creatively do? What kind of good trouble can you start in your neighborhood, in your community? Don't discount your own creativity, your own ability to come up with something that no one else has thought about. I like the bill. Who had the billboard? Yeah, I like the billboard. I mean, just a little guerrilla marketing. I like that. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Somebody came up with an idea for a billboard that just sort of fist in your face kind of thing, provoke people to think maybe a little bit differently. Then do that. Go raise the money for the billboard. I don't know what a billboard costs for a month, but probably more expensive than you think it is. Huh? What is it? Yeah. So there you go. It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Very small.
Yeah, for a small. So that my real message is go start some good trouble. I teach the course that I teach at LSU. It's called the Advanced Seminar in Political Communication. That's what the title. The faculty gave the title 20 years ago. And I always tell my students, the title of this course is that, but we're calling it Good Trouble. We're going to go out and start good trouble. And so I break them up into teams of 4, 5, and 6. And I tell them, your job is to start some trouble on this campus. Your job is to figure out what really makes you mad, what's an injustice, what's a problem that no one's addressing, and you figure out what to do with it. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you. Like I always tell them, if you think that every student ought to be armed and carrying a gun in class every day, I think it's a crazy idea, but I won't stop you because my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to encourage you to go start some trouble. But so far, no one's done that, thank God. But I mean, my point is that y'all figure it out. Y'all are creative. Young people, go sit in your groups and I'll facilitate, I'll help you, and I'll do everything I can to help you, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. You figure it out. My job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to create an environment that you figure out what to do. And I'll support you and I'll back you to the hilt in doing that. And so I would love to see that come out of this meeting, out of meetings all over the state, where people creatively come up with ways to resist what's coming our way, because it is coming our way. It's going to be bad. I mean, I think we all know that. I think that's why we're all here. We know it's going to be bad. We're already seeing previews of how bad it's going to be. This is just one example of how reckless this is going to get. Jeff Landry had you probably all saw this in the news. He had one of his transition committees recommended that we abolish the state income tax. All right, so that's fine. Well, if you got a better way to raise the tax, it's got a better way to fund the government than an income tax, then what is it? But they didn't do that. They just said abolish the income tax without any alternative. Like here, instead of the income tax, we ought to have this tax or this revenue source. They just said abolish the income tax. That's anarchy. That's fiscal terrorism. But that's what we're going to be fighting against, is people who fundamentally do not like government. They don't want government to exist. So the idea of abolishing the income tax and not replacing it with any tax is actually what they want. It wasn't an omission. They didn't mistakenly forget to talk about the revenue source they're going to replace it with. They don't want to have a revenue source. They want to starve the beast. So that's what we're fighting against, and it's going to get really bad, because the only thing we have going for us, I would say, is that, you know, Landry is, it seems at least in the beginning to be taking the legislature for granted. I mean, he went out and went just headlong into this session, special session, thinking that these legislators, especially senators, would just do whatever he wanted them to do when it came to the open primary. And he ran into a brick wall in the Senate, and they told him, no, we're actually an independent branch of government here, and we'll make that decision ourselves. Now, had he done his homework, he might have gotten it. You know, he might have gotten what he wanted, but he didn't do his homework. I think he will learn from that, and he will start doing his homework if he's smart. And I don't think he's dumb. I think he's smart. I think he'll start doing his homework. He will get more wins than losses. He won't win everything, but he will get more wins than losses. And I love the fact that somebody pointed out that he got 18% of registered voters, but he's got the mystique of a mandate, and he's going to use that to try to steamroll. And so a lot of what we're going to be opposed to and appalled by is going to happen in the next 6 months. And that's what worries me. That's why I think back to where we started, why the fact that the party is just totally flat-footed going into this session is going to be so damaging to the state. And why it's so, why it's just so, it's bad because because the party made no effort to try to stop Landry from being elected, but we're also in almost no position to oppose what he wants to do in this session because we're flat-footed. We've got to get off our back feet. And I hope that process starts in late March with a new Democratic State Central Committee that begins to change things in Bill's bench, so that when Landry makes mistakes, and he will, and when his popularity goes down, and it will, that we're ready to take advantage of it. Because we can't expect him to do the work for us. I mean, he's, you know, he may end up like Bobby Jindal with a 23% job approval rating in 4 years. I don't know. But we're not going to beat him unless we have done our homework starting tonight. And I'm glad to see so many people in this room. Thank you very much.